This week on World Stories, taking it to the streets in Armenia, and wine from the deserts of China. But we start in Germany, where churches across the country are currently providing a sanctuary for some 600 refugees threatened with deportation. But the power of the church in modern times is limited.
This church in Cologne is protecting Yusra al-Salkini from deportation. The Syrian student must leave Germany because she came to Europe via Italy. German law requires her to apply for asylum in Italy. Yusra is on the deportation list.
I hear that all people that go back to Italy sleep in the streets. So why, if my family live here, why I don't have a right to live with them?
The 24-year-old's asylum application has already been rejected twice. But this Lutheran church and its pastor are giving her temporary protection. For now, she can be near her father and brother, who have been granted asylum here in Germany. The family was torn apart by war. Her mother and youngest brother are still in Syria, waiting for visas to Germany. She keeps her family together virtually with a collage she made on her mobile phone.
This system makes me so angry. It's inhumane. What state, what law has the right to place itself above human rights in this fashion? Why can't they forbid a family to reunite?
The church protects Yusra, but the asylum offered by the church is not official legal protection. So far, the state tolerates this. The police doesn't raid Christian places of prayer. Right now, about 600 refugees are being harbored by German churches. Officials have a problem with this.
Church asylum can only be allowed to exist in exceptional cases. If clever lawyers misuse the original agreement and apply church asylum to extend the refugee stay until deadlines expire, then we cannot accept this.
For political reasons, Yusra's father left Syria 3 years ago. He doesn't want to talk about this as long as his family still is in danger.
The situation in Syria is not safe. I mean, everything is changing from minute to minute, from hour to hour.
There is no country as the original country. I love Syria. I love my country and my city.
Yusra dreams of completing her master's degree in architecture in Germany. One day she wants to return to Syria and help rebuild it after the war is finally over.
It's been a week of protests in Armenia, with people taking to the streets to demonstrate in favor of political change. Among the crowds, traders from the capital's famous bazaar.
The hustle and bustle of this bazaar in the center of Yerevan has died down. Firdos Market used to be known for its affordable prices. Now only a few vendors remain. The government officially closed the market nearly a year ago. The whole neighborhood is slated for redevelopment. Authorities say they need this land for government use. They plan to build a modern architectural complex here with apartments, offices, and an underground parking lot. For around 25 years, Anahit Prikyan had a stand here too. Since she closed shop, she has been living with her daughter and disabled mother on under 70 euros per month in benefits. The government wants to buy up the land she lives on as well, but she says the compensation they're offering is too low for the central location.
How come they have the right to take away my property? My child lives here, my mother. How can they steal your property? That's what the government is doing, stealing.
Anahit and many of the other residents here at Firdos Market think the government is corrupt and have taken part in recent protests. Protests in Armenia's capital, Yerevan, were sparked by the decision of longtime President Serge Sargsyan to take on the post of Prime Minister and remain in power. Demonstrators feel betrayed and let down by their government, which many accuse of corruption.
There is demand for the change, and this demand is not coming from small people that are in the elite I don't know, being the government part or the opposition part, but this is a social demand, and the expectations are very high.
Back on Firdos Market, Anahit shows us the land the government wants to buy up. This green oasis right in the city center has sentimental value for Anahit as well. The land has been in her family for 100 years.
My daughter says we should just leave all this behind, even leave the country. But how can we leave this behind? Our land, our cemeteries. My father is buried here, my grandmother, my grandfather. Why should I leave? Let the government leave instead. They have billions.
As they wait for construction on Firdos Market to begin, the locals here feel they have been played by the government for long enough. Along with many other Armenians, they now simply want change.
Staunchly conservative Saudi Arabia has been relaxing some of its more restrictive practices of late. This also includes making it easier for tourists to visit the country.
A lot of history can be discovered in Jeddah, a multicultural and diverse city in Saudi Arabia. They are from Russia, Germany or Belgium, foreign worker to discover the city with her.
My name is Abir. I'm going to be your tour guide. Welcome to the historical area. This city is 3,000 years old. You are in the old area of Jeddah.
A special tour in an ultra-conservative country.
I didn't know that there are tours, because it's not being promoted yet.
Saudi Arabia is known as a black box. The country wants to open up, and it has to, in order to reduce the country's growing unemployment and state deficit. Abir hopes the changes will also rebrand the image of the kingdom.
Yes, from here, please. So the first question is always, are you Saudi? A pure Saudi? Yes, I'm Saudi, and there are hundreds of ladies like me. Hopefully, with all these changes that we're having in the country, the West will change the idea about the Saudi woman.
It's not considered decent for women to do jobs where men and women mix. But this is changing too. Abir is about to get her certification as the first female tour guide. She says she has also experienced a lot of resistance from men that saw her as competition. The tour is about to end with Arabic coffee and dates.
It's less commercial. Here you feel like a tourist, you discover new things, and the people are also discovering you as tourists.
The government wants to issue tourist visas starting this month. The question is whether and how much tourism will change the ultra-conservative makeup of Saudi society.
Our last stop this week, China. The country is well on its way to becoming one of the world's largest consumers of wine. And China's best vintages come from the desert.
A vineyard on the edge of the Gobi Desert. In the springtime, the grapevines are cleared off after spending the cold, dry winter covered in protective soil. It takes several weeks to resurrect the vineyard, which is artificially irrigated. But vintner Wang Fang isn't at all put off by the challenges. Even though it's expensive and complicated, we said, let's do this. We want to be able to make our own high-quality Chinese wine. Since setting up the Kanan winery in the Ningxia province 7 years ago, Wang Fang has been granted a number of accolades. She discovered her love of wine in Germany, where she lived for a decade. The vintner and her staff are always experimenting to get tastes just right. She doesn't have a professional qualification, but you don't necessarily need one to be able to identify the perfect flavor. So, what's her secret? My wine palate. I love wine. Drinking it is my hobby. If you really love wine, you need to be able to rely on your palate. You need to be able to say, no, that's not right. Something's still missing. Wang Feng's father has a winery of his own right across the way. Wang Fengyu was the first person to cultivate grapes in the region. That was 15 years ago. Despite the less than ideal climate, he was confident that the soil was suitable. The retired agricultural engineer and a colleague begged the authorities to lease them a piece of land. Back then, they said nothing would come of this, two old folks wanting to grow wine here. But Wang Fengyu stuck to his guns, and these days investing in wine has become fashionable. Even the regional government is in on the game. It's invested some 800 million euros in this sector. Today, authorities are inspecting a prospective wine-growing site. Investing here means joining a state cooperative. One day, a premium brand of Chinese wine will be produced here. So far, small wine growers are the only ones to have really found success here. Wang Feng produces 80,000 bottles a year. She's introduced a Riesling Rebe grape from Germany. She often gets visits from abroad. Her wines cost between 20 and 150 euros a bottle. It's a higher price than what you would pay for a similar quality in other countries that have a history of wine growing. But I think it'll settle. It's certainly high quality. They're hoping that one day the Gobi Desert will be familiar to wine lovers the world over.